Right, welcome. That was a very high-pitched start from me there. Welcome again to another interview on the UK Pun Off with one of our favourite punners. This time it's Nathan Ramsden-Lock. How are we doing?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no. There's me going high-pitched again. I don't know what that's all about. I mean, we were talking like for about, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes before, and did I ever make that noise?
No.
No. I don't know why. I've just started doing it once we're into an interview. Parky never done it, but hey, maybe that's my selling point. But Nate, it's great to have you on the show, man. Been looking to get you on to do this for a little while now. How long is it that? How long have you been doing comedy for a start?
About 3 to 4 years now.
Right. Which is not that long in the grand scheme of things, really.
It's not.
No, and I suppose half of that we've been in lockdown, so it's even shorter. But I mean, what sort of made you get into comedy? What was there any sort of driving factor that made you think, right, that's something that I'd like to have a go at?
Well, I kind of fell into it by accident, really. I was watching an interview with Tim Vine on a program called Carpool, where Robert Llewellyn from Red Dwarf drives comedians around in a car and talks to them. And he asked Tim Vine, how do you make your material up? And he said, well, I start with the punchline and I work it backwards. Mm-hmm. I thought, I could give that a go. And I'd always liked Tim's brand of humour. So I wrote down all these shop names, and then suddenly all this material came out of it. Like my wife asked me to go shopping the other day. I said to her, can't Tesco? And I kind of finished the set with, finally I got home with all the shopping, and my wife says, hurry up. And I said, wait, Rose, let Thomas cook it, and just worked in all the different brand names and things like that. Yeah. And things like, what is it with shop names? I find them so confusing. I needed some wellies. They have none in boots. And that sort of thing. So I wrote all this material, and I kind of had an idea that I would send it off to maybe Tim Vine so that he could use it or do whatever he liked with it. But he's not the easiest person to get hold of. And so I'd kind of never done anything with the material. And about 3 years later, I just went along to one of those pub open mics, and it wasn't a comedy open mic night. It was actually a music open night, open mic night. But I thought, I'll try this material out, and I just read it. And my performance style was terrible, but they liked the material. And then I did nothing for about further 2-3 years with it. And then I was at an event where they had a talent contest. And I thought, I'll get up and do it. And again, I read it from my phone, and I received a text in the middle of it. And that disrupted the flow. But actually, people laughed at that even more. And I thought, oh, okay. And so a year later, I made an effort to learn my material. And then I went along to a proper comedy open mic night and tried it out. And I got a really good reaction from it. So I stuck at it. And then I managed to cram in about 50 gigs in the first year, which is a phenomenal amount. And stuck at it, really.
So I take it certainly sort of doing like 50 gigs in your first year. I mean, were you very sort of wary of your sort of stagecraft sort of upping from like gig 1 to gig 50 type thing?
Yes. I would say that my whole style evolved over that period. And it's interesting, some of the advice that you get, especially about puns and one-liners, because they can divide the audience. So it's a bit of an acquired taste. And so sometimes you've immediately halved the audience before you've even started. So I've learned now to sort of get people on board with what I'm about to do by doing a few visual gags at the beginning. Like, for example, here's one I messed around with the other day. I spent all night working on upgrading my daughter's tablet. It's got 5G now. And then I go, well, that's the level of the act. And then people know what to expect, and they're on board with you. And so a good sort of opening visual gag sort of sets the bar. They get in the mindset. And the other thing is people say, oh, you should never laugh at your own jokes. But actually, you can if you are having a good time in your delivery, then people will get on board with that as well and enjoy themselves as well. So I've just found being silly in my delivery, a bit like Tim Vine does, people just get on board and enjoy themselves.
Yeah, because I mean that's basically why we sort of do it. It's for the entertainment of others type thing, and it's this whole thing about finding your voice, like the way that you can sort of like deliver it and make an impact in the way that suits you and that gives the audience the sort of the best time that they can possibly have type thing.
Yeah.
So sort of like growing up, I mean, you've mentioned Tim Vine, but was it always kind of like puns and things like that you were into, or like jokes type humor, or was it kind of like sitcoms and things that you were watching growing up?
I very much used to watch the Two Ronnies when I was younger, and I loved sketches like the Fork Handles one. And the wordplay that those two used to do was just amazing. Like the Mastermind sketch where he answers the question that was given previously, and things like that. Just so brilliant. And I guess having been brought up in that era of humour is kind of rubbed off on me. And also being a dad myself, I suppose there's a typical dad joke era thing that comes with parenthood as well.
Yeah. So what other kind of do you have any other more contemporary comedy influencers, or
no, more I spend my time watching people like Milton Jones and Stuart Francis and other one-liner sort of comics and my peers, and just sort of try to study the craft really.
Right, so when you say like studying the craft and things like that, you've already said that you're kind of like quite kind of like silly and sort of you like to set the tone early by like a silly little visual gag and then that sort of thing. I mean, was that always the case, or is it sort of, have you kind of evolved like your act kind of over the years? Like, how would you, I suppose, differentiate yourself from other one-line comics, or do you, or are you just you type thing?
There's two ways I differentiate myself. One is you get most one-liner comedians and pun tellers, they just do all sorts of random jokes, whereas I tell a story on a theme with all the different puns. So like I'll tell a story about going shopping, as we just talked about there. I also do a set on looking for a new car and working all sorts of different car puns along the way. And one about going on a dodgy date to a Chinese restaurant. So that's how I kind of differentiate it. And then also it's quite hard to keep an audience's attention for 10 minutes on just puns and one-liners. So you'll notice that Tim Vine will break it with a sort of visual gag or a song or something. And I went away on a writing retreat a few years back, and I wrote a song, a silly song, and I performed it in front of the other comedians that were there, and I got a really good reception to it. And then I tried it out in the middle of one of my sets, and it went down really well. And so I wrote a few more silly songs, and now my whole act is I'll do some of the material. As soon as you think that people are losing their attention at all, I'll just kill it dead and launch straight into a song. And the more abruptly you do that, the funnier it is. Because I'll literally turn my back to the audience, start a track and go, time for a song, and launch straight in. And so the more that has progressed, the easier I've found it to relax, because it's really hard trying to recall all of that material. To do 5 minutes worth of puns and one-liners, that's about 100 gags to memorize. So it's nice being able to break it up with the songs now and the visual stuff as well. So yeah, it's evolved quite a bit.
Right. So certainly, do you have a technique for remembering material?
Yes, I do. I often record it and then play it back in the car over and over again and listen to it while I'm commuting, stuff like that. And also my poor daughter, who's my biggest fan, she will often let me perform it in front of her. She knows my material better than I do. But is
that a good or a bad thing?
Well, it's helpful when you get stuck and she goes, "Don't you do this gag here, Dad?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, that's right." So yeah, I'm very blessed with a very understanding daughter who helps me rehearse my material. Bless her.
Nice one. So you'd mentioned sort of earlier that you'd heard from on the car share interview with Tim Vine that he starts at the punchline, works backwards. Is that the way that? Well, and you've already said that's the way that you sort of started out with the shopping and the brand name stuff. Is that something that you still do, or do you have a particular writing technique that you employ?
I'll often pick a theme and then just write down lots of different words in one of those sort of diagrams where you span out from each word, and then write some other related words from that. And then I'll kind of use the technique that we talked about earlier, where you start with the punchline and then work it backwards. So just like you do when appear on UK Pun Off, which is, there's a topic and you sort of work out words and think scenarios around it and kind of build from there, really.
Mm-hmm. So is it something that's evolved for yourself over time, or was that something that you learned, the sort of the spider diagram mind map type thing, or is that something you just naturally sort of evolved into?
Well, it's something I kind of naturally evolved into, but I've also read books on that's how some people do it. Also, sometimes I find that I have to force myself to sit down and write. And that's what I've really enjoyed about the UK Pun Off being on all the way through lockdown. It got me into a good mindset of writing new stuff every week on those themes and topics. So that was a really helpful tool in disciplining myself. Otherwise, I don't often think I'll sit down and write some new material, but I will often suddenly get an idea and then I'll stop and I'll dictate it into my phone. But that isn't the greatest idea, because quite often text-to-speech on puns will turn out to be complete nonsense. And then you read it back afterwards and you think, what on earth was I trying to say there? So I record them as voice notes now, not using text-to-speech. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, there's a bit certainly could come out a bit strange there. But where would you say is the sort of strangest place that that you've done a gig?
Oh, there's a couple. One was in a goth metal pub where there were 8 of us comedians, and imagine the scene. It was just like death metal music playing in the pub and everything. And suddenly they kill the music stone dead. And we come on and they couldn't be less interested in hearing any comedy whatsoever, let alone a pun act. So that was one of the strangest places. And the second strangest place has to be, I went to this pub where the stage was actually the corridor that looks onto the room that we were performing to. So we were stood in the corridor, and like the audience are in this room where you're kind of looking into a gap at the audience, and you get people walking past you into the toilet. So not an ideal venue for comedy.
Not really, no. But I mean, I know what you mean, like with the with your death metal experience, if you like. A lot of the kind of strangest ones that's going to happen, not strangest ones, most annoying ones, is that they booked like a comedy night on when there's like a big Champions League match or a big local football match or something like that on, and they've got screens on in the telly, and everyone's just watching the football, and you're trying to sort of win them over. I mean, it's the ultimate. I mean, I've never been able to do it, but it's the ultimate. I don't know what's the opposite word of insult. Let us know in the comments. It's ultimate compliment if you're able to win them over, get those heads from the screens onto you.
That's where the songs come in handy, because that does tend to grab their attention. Mm-hmm. And one of the songs I do is a silly rap, and I often get the audience on board waving hands like this. So you're getting them to interact with you, and if you can get that interaction, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, without a doubt, man. So I mean, we've all had them. I mean, those are the strangest kind of gigs that you've had. What about the worst ones? Is there any sort of particularly bad experiences that you've had? Because we've all got worst ones. We all remember the worst ones more than we do the good ones.
I mean, one of the worst ones I did was we got invited to do a holiday park out of season. Now, I didn't realise that the out of season meant almost nobody there. So 8 of us travelled to this holiday park to do a gig, all excited. You know, it's a proper venue, thinking this is going to be good. You know, we're going to have a dedicated audience that come to see it. And there was like one couple who, by their own admission, were a bit slow. So they were never going to be quick at getting puns. And another couple that sat with their dog and the bar staff. And that was the entire thing. So there was more comedians than there was audience. And to make matters worse, the dog would not shut up barking all the way through my set. So that was probably the worst gig that I've ever done.
Oh, that's something. I mean, an out of season gig. But I suppose if you impressed at that, you'd get back in the on season, I suppose. But
yeah.
I don't know why they'd book something out of season. As I say, I mean, it must have cost more money to put on than, I mean, as you say, it was almost literally 2 men and a dog there. So, what's the point in doing something like that, man? But I mean, it's all experience. It's all stage time, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, that's the most sort of important thing about being a comic, is being able to get up on stage or online type thing and like try out like new material, see what works, see what doesn't. Because I mean, I know that. I mean, I'm sure you've sort of had it before as well, where you've written a joke and thought, right, that's a winner, and you went on stage and nothing.
Yeah,
nothing. But then you've written just a silly little that'll do, a throwaway line, and you go on stage and it brings the house down type thing. So,
yeah.
No rhyme, no reason. So, I mean, I suppose if you can get, maybe the dog was appreciative of your work. Maybe that's what it was. Take that away from it.
Yeah.
So maybe that could have been, I don't know, one of your best gigs. But what would you say, though, would be, if it wasn't for a dog appreciating all of your material, what would you say is either your proudest moment, or just a gig that sort of stands out in your mind?
I think there's two, really. One was I went to watch King Gong at the Comedy Store a few years back, early on in my comedy journey, and I was watching, and like 3 comedians got booed off before they'd even uttered a word, just because the audience didn't like the look of them. And I mean, it's the most brutal gong show you're ever going to see. And so I held out a card and said, "Pick me." And so they did. They got me up on the stage, and I just held out a load of visual cards and whatnot, and did a little bit of material. I think I only lasted about 35 seconds, but it was just the sheer buzz of having survived that long, when other people just, if they didn't even like the look of them, they didn't
get to open their mouth, never mind telling
That's
any
right,
jokes.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the King Gong competition is legendary brutal, and they also ran it online over lockdown. And so I thought, just to keep my hand in at doing something, I actually did, I think it was about 5 months worth of King Gong. Now, they don't really like pun acts, and each time I lasted only about under a minute or whatever. And I felt a bit like the, you know, that couple on Britain's Got Talent that come back year after year, and they got no hope of getting through, but they just do it. And I kind of did it for a laugh. I think I'm the only person to get away with being on King Gong twice in the same night. Now, I wangled this. It was the Halloween one. And so I dressed up in a costume and did my 25 seconds or so and got gonged off. And they said, have you got another costume? The people that booked me behind the scenes, and said, yeah. They said, come back on as someone else. So I dressed up in a different outfit, and it was a good 30 seconds before they realised it was me again.
Were you doing the same material?
Similar material, yeah.
You should have done exactly the same material and just sort of seen how that sort of went.
It was just funny watching the penny drop. So that was one of the ways I amused myself over lockdown anyway.
So, I mean, have you got any sort of pre-gig rituals that you do? I mean, I know a lot of people, I mean, you might be the one muttering to yourself in the corner, going over your material, one that can't stop chatting, the one that's back and forth to the toilet every 2 seconds. Have you any sort of like rituals or sort of things you go through before you go on stage?
One is always take a deep breath before I go on. And the other is I have I've got one of those smartwatches that I can put a few prompts up to remind me of what I'm going to do. I have a quick glance at that, and it just settles the nerves a bit that it's going to help me remember some of the things I set out to do. It's not always successful, but sometimes.
I mean, sometimes you need all the sort of help you can get, really, because I mean, I know Tim Vine sort of employs, I mean, I think he's got, I don't know if it's his whole set written down, but I mean, he's got it written down somewhere. And there's a few times I've seen him sort of get lost. And they go over and hold up this piece of paper and say, oh, where was I? That's right, Brixton. Or,
that's right.
It's a joke, but really he was looking at, right, it's that joke type thing. Or at least I'm assuming it was.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'll grab the visual props and I'll go, anyone know what this is? It's an old lang syne. And it just gives you a break and enables you to get your flow of thought and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so one thing that I've got is like a newspaper. And like I bring it's one that I've made myself and read it out, and it's got some nonsense on the front that the audience loves it. But yeah, some nonsense on the front. But basically all the jokes that I read from the newspaper, they're all written down. So I mean, I don't need to memorize them. A lot of them are like new ones that I might not have got right in my head yet. And again, it's just that little thing. It's just a break, a bit of a full stop in constant sort of pun one-liner telling. It's just a little bit of a full stop, a little bit of a break, and then move on. But also something that's very handy because you can just take the pressure off your head for a minute. Right, so kind of like during lockdown, how have you been sort of like keeping up with like joke writing and things like that? I mean, you've mentioned you've done the kind of the King Gong, and obviously you've been on and you've been writing for the UK Pun Off. But what other kind of things? I mean, have you got a sort of like an end goal in sight? Any sort of thing you're working towards? Like how have you sort of like kept yourself occupied?
I thought I'd done nothing during lockdown, but actually it turned out I'd done quite a bit. First of all, I was writing weekly stuff on the topics for the UK Pun Off. I joined an American writers Facebook group where they would pull topics out of a bowl, and you basically had to riff on the subject, which is not something I normally do. I'm very much a scripted comedian, and don't do a lot of riffing. But it was good to make me think and just try different things. What else? The BBC were running something called Upload across last year, where you could submit stuff and they would play it out. So I edited some of my sets and sent those in to be played out on the BBC, which was good.
Cool.
What else did I get up to? Some of the material that I'd written for one of the themes for the UK Pun-Off, the topic was Songs of Praise. I don't know whether you remember that one.
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, you did quite a few that week, I think, if I remember.
That's right. I wrote about 9 or 10. And in the end, I thought, I'd like to do something with that. And so I actually put it into an article format and submitted it to a UK men's magazine called Sorted. And that's appearing on their humour page this month, which is nice. This month being the July edition of the Sorted magazine. He happens to have, and they put a very funny picture with it as well. I don't know if you can see that one.
Yeah, I can see that all right, man.
But the premise is basically imagine if Songs of Praise was not on BBC but on a commercial channel. What would the kind of sponsorship that gets worked in with it? You know, Here Is Love, Fast as the Ocean, sponsored by P&O Ferries. You know, things like that. So that was quite nice to have my work published in that manner as well. Yeah,
definitely. It must have been quite a buzz.
It was.
So was it just like an unsolicited thing? Was it you just thought, right, I can sort of format this into a digestible piece, or was it something that you were always looking to do to sort of get published in sort of different places? Or
what it was I'm a member of a group of comedians that meet together that are of faith, and so this Christian writers group, we get together once a year, and normally we go away for a retreat and write stuff, and we were invited to all contribute to this humour page in the magazine, and so we all submitted stuff and pulled it together, and I was lucky in getting that piece chosen for publication.
Yeah, nice, man, nice. Yeah, that's really cool. Really like that. You're kind enough to send me not a copy of the magazine, but certainly that little shot, and I mean, it was good stuff. It did sort of bring back. I mean, I could remember the jokes that you'd made on that Pun-Off, which is available for viewing on the UK Pun-Off pages if you want to go and find it. And I think a good few of those jokes were certainly read out, because I mean, I did remember when you showed me them, and they were cracking jokes. They were really good.
Thank you.
Which, to be honest, I mean, the likes of yourself, and there's 2 or 3 others, and we all know who they are. I know you know who they are, Nathan. They contribute like every week, and all your stuff is like top notch. It's like really good, and it's a pleasure when you're the producer and just sort of reading through all the jokes that you guys send in, and you're like, oh, they're at it again. That's brilliant. And quite a lot of the times it's like, why did I not think of that?
Yeah,
it's like one of those ones. But on that kind of topic though, are there any sort of like what's your favourite joke of like another comedian? Like something that when you heard it you just thought, oh, I wish I'd written that.
Well, I think my most favourite joke has to be another Tim Vine one, of course, where he simply goes, "Velcro, what a rip-off." And you think it's so short, so simplistic, and so to the point. It's brilliant, you know. Yeah. And I wish I could come up with stuff that good, you know, that it literally is one line delivered so well. You know?
That's like what, 5 words.
Yeah.
And it's an absolutely brilliant joke. There's the other one it's similar in sort of length, certainly, is exit signs.
They're on the way out.
They're on the way. Exit signs, they're on the way out. 7 words. I mean, just really, really short jokes. That's what I really like. It's like the really short ones, sort of straight to the point. It's more of a one-liner than a pun, really, because it's not really a set-up punchline type thing. But I just think, those are absolutely fantastic jokes. Tim Vine is brilliant at those. He's really good at those.
Certainly is.
He's good at lots of things, but
but you've got to be ruthless in your material. He'll sit there and write 100 jokes, and he'll probably only use 3, maybe even only 2 of those. It's very hard sometimes to let go of a joke if you like it, but it's actually no good. And it does depend sometimes on the audience that you get. So I won't necessarily bin a joke the first time I've tried it if it hasn't worked. If I've tried it a couple of times and it's got nothing, then it's straight in the bin. Yeah. But sometimes just a tweak of one word can make a difference from it being comedy gold to nobody gets it whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've found that on a few occasions myself, certainly. I think it was another one of these interviews I kind of discussed it with. I think it might have been Tony Cowards. I can't remember. It was basically the placement of that joke in your set. There's been times like maybe I've done a 10-minute set and I've added in a few new jokes. Now, when I've tried it maybe towards the start or in between a certain couple of jokes, it's just not worked. It's just completely died. But maybe if I placed it in between another couple of jokes, it's went well, which is really weird. I don't know if it's about maybe the rhythm of your delivery and just the kind of sequential nature of the jokes that you're going through, maybe like genre or topic wise, whether that just distorts it a little too much, that new joke. But all that stuff's it's interesting and it's also immensely frustrating. Especially when it's something, like as I said earlier, you've sort of written something you thought that'll do me for the day, because you think it's an absolutely brilliant joke, and then you go on stage and nothing.
And
you're like, that's totally frustrating.
Yeah, definitely,
without a doubt, man. So Velcro, what a rip-off. You'd say that's probably your kind of favourite joke. What about one that you've written? One that you've written that you're particularly proud of? In fact, give us 2. I want one that you've written that you're proud of and does well, and one that you've written that you love, but everyone else hates. Not hates, but it didn't go down as well as you might have thought.
Okay, well, let's do one of the ones that I like best.
Yeah, don't tell us which. Let us just know.
All right. Well, my doctor's always encouraging me to steal other people's iPads. At the end of every consultation, he says, "Keep on taking the tablets."
Yeah, I like that.
And then I've got this one that I'm sure it's got potential, but I just can't make it work. It's meant. I think the only way to work it is to try and deliver it in a Scottish accent. But I can't remember
everyone right now. Everyone wants to hear Nathan Ramsden-Lock's Scottish accent. Come on, man, you set yourself up here.
I can't remember the setup. That's the problem. But all I can do is give you the punchline and show why it doesn't work, which is it's just a play on the word. You've gone in for an operation and you need an anaesthetic, and the assistant mishears what's said by the doctor, and she bandages my legs up together and said, "I thought you said he should be anesthetized or something like that, anesthetized." But I can't quite remember. Anesthetized. Anesthetized. I thought he was supposed to. Anyway,
That was more Bangladeshi than Glaswegian, but I mean,
yeah, sorry for the offence. Well, you can see why I don't do it. It's not good.
no. But, I mean, as I said before, I mean, there's ones where it's just a little tweak, and it can go from just not working to completely working. And yeah, no, there's definitely something in that. Knees are tied, anesthetized. Yeah, works, man. It's not going to win you a fridge magnet, but yeah, it works. Yeah, it works. But yeah, thank you very much, Nathan, for coming on and doing this little interview. It's been really great because I'm getting to hear your kind of backstory and sort of just the way you sort of you work through comedy and stuff like that, man. It's been real fun.
It's really been a pleasure. I've enjoyed sharing my comedy adventures with you.
Yeah, absolutely, and long may they continue. Nathan Ramsden-Lock, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.